Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just counting faces on the screen. It appears that we are all there. All right, we seem to be. So I will call this regular meeting of Council of the Municipality for December 7th, 2021. Councillors, you have today's proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or other changes to be made to the agenda? Seeing, hearing nothing. Councillor Demota?
I did want to bring up in other business, just a topic of discussion and in other new business, 10.1 Tourism Relief Fund, Federal Tourism Relief Fund.
All right, thank you.
Please.
Any other changes or additions to the agenda? All right, I will ask Councillor Demota then to make a motion to amend the agenda to add agenda item 10.1, a discussion of the Federal Tourism Relief Fund. That is your motion?
That is my motion.
Thank you. All in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. And might I have a motion then to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Keller-Harempy, thank you for that. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We have two sets of minutes for approval today. The first being the minutes of the organizational meeting of October 26, 2021. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Seeing no hands up, hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the organizational meeting of October 26, 2021 as presented. Councillor Wilson, that's your motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We also have in the package the minutes of the regular meeting of November 2nd, 2021. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Seeing no hands, hearing nothing, I would invite a motion, please, to approve those minutes as presented. Councillor Waxer, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. So thank you all for that. Presentations, Mr. Given, we have as agenda item 4.1, a presentation involving the Connaught Street Utilities 2021 project closure, and you have an update for us. So I will turn it to you and you can introduce our guest.
Sure. Thanks, Your Worship. We have a number of guests here this afternoon that were part of the project team, and administration invited them forward to give council and the community a little bit of a brief update on how the 2021 project went, what has been completed, what is remaining to be addressed in 2022. And to be really clear, Your Worship, we're very proud of the work that the team has done to conceive a project like this, design it, secure approval from council, and execute the project in less than 12 months is actually really an undertaking that shouldn't be underappreciated. And so we wanted to invite the members of the project team to come forward and give council a little bit of an update. And I want to say here in front of everybody that I have a great deal of appreciation for the team that was able to execute this project with the professionalism that they did. We're joined today by Chris Timmons from Collier Project Leaders, who is our project manager on the installation, and Mike Steffler from WSP, who is our design lead and on the ground lead for the project. I'm actually going to turn it over to Mike and Chris to give a little bit of an update to council about the project, how it went, some of the observations, and anything else they'd like to share just as we close out the project for the season with that significant milestone of having all the pipes in the ground and the asphalt over top of them. So gentlemen, I'll turn it over to you two to give council an update.
Thanks, Bill. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to talk with you about the Jasper Connaught utility project. My name is Chris, and I'm working with Colliers project leaders who over the last 12 months has supported the municipality as your dedicated project leader for the successful completion of this project. We know it's an important one for the community, and we're really proud to be a part of it. So just a little bit about Colliers. You know, I know there's a few familiar faces here, but some of them are new. Too many capital projects fail, but they don't have to. And at Colliers Project Leaders, we feel that every capital project deserves to be successful. We manage projects on behalf of organizations that lack the in-house capacity or expertise to successfully do it themselves. We're not designers or construction contractors, we're owners' representatives, and it's our responsibility to get capital projects ready, get them built, and get them performing so our clients can stay focused on their daily operations. I'm sure all Jasper residents are pretty familiar with this project by now. I should note, though, I think this project does go so much further than just another utility project for the community. This is really about laying the groundwork for future housing in a community that really needs it. And it's, you know, the efforts of this project are really directly aligned with the municipality's strategic priority of improving the supply of housing in Jasper. So it is a pretty big milestone. In January of 2021, the municipality faced a pretty daunting task. If successful in their request for funding under the Rapid Housing Initiative, they would need to have delivered 40 affordable housing units on parcel GC within 12 months. This meant the site would need to be fully serviced before the end of this year to accommodate people moving in the spring of 2022. Unfortunately, we weren't successful on that project, but funding, but we do have had made some milestones since then that were important to position us for that should we been successful. Excuse me. Not an easy task considering where all utilities are kind of located in Jasper, and recognizing the intense commitment this project required. Colliers was brought on to support the municipality in the early days and augment their team and drive the project forward on their behalf. Our role began with obtaining a feasibility study and defining the full scope of work for this project, and was later expanded to include full project management services. Working with municipal staff, Colliers created the project plan and the master project schedule that would ultimately guide the project along the path to success. We led the procurement to obtain the most qualified design team for the best price. We pre-qualified contractors, creating a short list of the most qualified contractors that we wanted to bid on the work. We provided utility coordination with ATCO Gas and ATCO Electric to mitigate risks and conflicts with other utility providers, led the development of the community stakeholders communication plan that would ultimately keep Jasper residents and tourists informed. And we were the primary point of contact for Parks Canada over the course of the project. I've got to say, I'm incredibly happy with how successful this project was. I know we have a little bit more work to do in the spring to just kind of tidy things up. But as far as budget and timing goes, we're right where we want to be. And it really enforces how strongly I believe in what you can accomplish when you have the right team at the table, all pulling in the same direction. Sitting with our project team, which included the municipality, Colliers, WSP, GS Construction, and listening to them work collaboratively together week in and week out, quickly put to bed any doubts that we had about not meeting our intended target by the end of this year. Speaking of team, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Mike Steffler from WSP. Mike is a professional engineer. I'm sure some of you know him. He's based out of Edson, the WSP Edson office, and his role as the design lead and field engineer on this project was instrumental to getting us to where we are today. He's no stranger to working in Jasper, knows the town well, and without stealing any more of his thunder, I'd like to pass the torch over to him to say a few words. Mike.
Well, thanks for your compliments, Chris. I don't know if I truly live up to those, but I really want to say thank you to the municipality for us being part of this major project. This is probably over the 25 years has been probably one of the most intense timelines that we've ever had to meet here at WSP, from start to getting to where we are today with asphalt, with pipe in the ground. When we received this job, it was the beginning of May. In 3 weeks, we had the time to get the design out, get it ready for tender, and be ready to go. In the background, we also had the time to start procuring contractors and qualified contractors. And I think, as Chris said before, the success of this project relies on the entire team coming together, pulling through. Through the pre-qualifications, we ended up with 3 qualified contractors. Through the bid process, one stood out beyond, and that was GS Construction. And the time they came into this project, they had a no-quit attitude that they were going to get this job done and completed. It was their hard work, the relationship with their subs. That's truly no-quit attitude led to the success of this project. And that's where I think was one of the reasons why we did achieve this. When we finally got going in the end of August, we just got in at the end of the tourist season. And as you're aware, trying to do a job of this nature, trying to accommodate tourism, definitely a big a project to do without impacting the businesses. Within 14 weeks, we took almost a kilometer of work in 14 weeks. In my industry, that is basically tight time frame. And to put things in perspective, at one time we had over 46 employees on the ground within a 2-block radius getting this done. So definitely we came together, we got it done. And I really want to thank the residents of Jasper for their patience and understanding, the commercial businesses for working with us and accommodating and maintaining access to that, as well as I want to thank the municipality directly, CEO, Mr. Givens, Director of Infrastructure Services, John Greathead. That collaboration allowed us to work closely together to achieve what we did today. So a big thank you goes out to your community and how you all worked with us to ensure this got completed. So I think that's where credit I'd like to thank is Bill and John the most. So that's pretty much what I've got to say. Chris, back to you.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, like Mike said, it's been an absolute incredible team adventure here, and we're so proud to be a part of this team and to have contributed to it. Working with WSP, has just set the bar, as in Mike's team, for expectations from a design and engineering perspective. Looking forward to the opportunity to do this again. In closing, I do want to echo what Mike said. I want to give a big shout out to John and Bill who for their roles on this project. It's not uncommon for some owners or clients to kind of get in the way of success on a project. Not the case on this one. I want to thank you both for the trust and the respect you put in all of us as a team. Your positive attitude, your open-mindedness, willingness to help out where you could didn't go unnoticed. To that, I'd also like to say the thanks to Moira, Dave, and Alex from Parks Canada for their commitment and contribution as a partner agency in town. Everything has to go by them, and we couldn't have done it without the 3 of them for sure. Thank you again, Council and Jasper, for the opportunity to present today. We're really looking forward to wrapping things up in the spring, the few remaining outstanding things that we have. And I've got to say, without question, this has been the most fulfilling project of my career, and really hope that we can do this again. So thank you.
And I think just to sum it up, what we've got left is we've got a little bit of asphalt to finish up on Connaught, Spruce and Pine. Obviously, our goal was to get the asphalt down at least 1 layer, which we've achieved. And we've got some minor landscaping and seeding to do. That will happen here probably the latter part of April. We want to be out before May long weekend. We want to be out of your community. We don't want to impact it any longer. So our goal is to be there April, and within 10 days, we should be in and out and hopefully wrapped up, that we're good for successful 2022. So thank you very much.
Your Worship and Council, Chris, Mike, thanks very much for the presentation. You may, maybe gentlemen, stick around. I don't know if council has any questions about the project. Not all council members are here for the initiation, but you might have some questions about what you've heard from the community, or some of the details, but certainly these are, Chris and Mike are the guys to be asking about that. I also want to show just some appreciation as well, just for some of our in-house MOJ staff. Amanda Stevens was a really important part of the project, ensuring that we're getting out those regular weekly updates to both council and the community. I've seen projects like this go sideways, even though everybody on the ground was working hard. From the outside, it might, people might not understand what progress is being made. And so those regular updates, I think, ensured that the community and council were fully aware of what was happening every step of the way. And I think that that was really an integral part to the success as well. And so certainly thank the team for putting those together, and for Amanda for making sure that they got out in a way that was understandable to the entire community. So, Your Worship, we'll turn it back to you. If there are any questions, the team's here to be able to answer them. And if not, then I want to sort of extend my thanks to Chris and Mike, and also GS Construction, who did just such a fantastic job on the ground. Your Worship, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbon. Just before I call on councillors for questions or comments, and I see at least one hand up now, I just want to echo thanks to all, to you, Mr. Gibbon, and to all of your staff. You've mentioned some of them, and I just extend my appreciation to the entire team, both internal to the municipality and external. Chris and Mike, and your compliments to Parks Canada are noted as well, but thank you both for your work. I think Mike and I had an opportunity to share a Zoom screen early summer, midsummer sometime, a community open house about the project, and it was just underway. And that opportunity gave me all the confidence I needed. There were minimal questions. The community was, I think, accepting of the fact that the work had to be done. And I credit certainly Amanda Schultz for getting the word out. The community was aware of what was happening and why. As Mike said in his remarks, the commercial sector was very receptive to the work, understanding the need, and allowed the contractor to work around. And compliments to GS Contracting. It is amazing when the negative feedback you hear from the community is that your contractor is working too much and too long and too hard, and they should take a break so we could have an evening of peace or a weekend of peace. So full credit, as Mike said, that was a crew that had a no-quit attitude, and it was exactly what was needed to get this project through in the very tight timeline that we had. So I extend credit to all of you. It has been a real joy, and it has been, from my perspective, one of the least controversial disruptions of our community that we have faced, everybody recognizing the imperative of preparing for new housing. So I really do extend my appreciation on behalf of council and the municipality for your combined efforts. And with that, I will turn it over to questions or comments from councillors. And Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really enjoyed seeing the project unfold throughout the latter parts of the summer months and through the fall. It was pretty impressive, and being in construction, but of course not to that scale. It didn't seem like there was a moment wasted. So congrats on that. It was about a year ago, about this time, I just got onto the JCHC. So I was really catching up, but the chair of the JCHC at the time was Councillor Paul Butler. So didn't hear his name just yet, but I really wanted to show appreciation to his role in this as well. And Chris, you worked pretty closely with him once the Rapid Housing Initiative opportunity came up, and I think he was a crucial team member on the early stages of the project. So I just wanted to comment that how great of a job I think he did in participation with this project as well. What else do I have to say? I guess the only other thing, so thanks guys for that, but Mr. Timmons, I think you've probably been in contact with Mr. Gibbon, but hopefully I'd like to meet up with you in the future in January to kind of get the JCHC board momentum going again. So look forward to that.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to kind of meeting up with you and kind of continuing to advance this this initiative forward. And I really, you know, coming this close to, you know, finishing this project, we really are, I think, you know, I speak on behalf of Jasper, just we're really on the threshold of doing something great when it comes to housing here. And I think the Rapid Housing Initiative was a real big step in the right direction, albeit we weren't successful, but I think the conversation is still going and we just have so much momentum behind us that I think great things are coming. So I'm looking forward to that.
Sorry,
Thank you both. Councillor Wilson, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to follow up, Chris, I know there was a second round of Rapid Housing Initiative maybe coming, Mr. Given. So you have your hand up. So I was just seeing if there was any conclusion to that. What's the word? You know,
yeah, that round of funding.
That round of funding, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, Council, I can report that we received an update from the Rapid Housing Initiative just over the last week. Unfortunately, our application did not make the cut, that second round. So that notwithstanding, I think Chris is exactly right. What we've done is created, with the Connaught Utilities Project, created an opportunity for step change in terms of housing in Jasper rather than incremental change. And whether that is through Rapid Housing Initiative funding, private development, or some other form of public development on that site, all of those are enabled because of the Connaught Utilities Project. And now when we start to imagine what could go there, we don't have to worry about this other barrier because that of utilities and servicing, because that barrier has been solved through this project. So we'll have more discussion, as you said, Councillor Wilson, at JCHC, about next steps and what kind of projects we can support or imagine. And actually, Chris and I were talking just yesterday with another member of this Collier's team about what work we can do to advance the JCHC in fulfilling its core mission.
Thank you both. Councillor Demoda.
Well, I just wanted to say if there was any apprehension or perceived apprehension when we first started out on this endeavor with the changes, you know, I have to say that everything from the beginning of, you know, the getting this on the go to the communication to the collaboration, and then foremost the trust that's been built from administration and just seeing how that's worked well with your partnerships and the people and the companies that come here to work. So I think that's great. This is everything I signed up for as being a councillor. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Mike, Chris, and the municipal team, working too hard and working too long and working with tight timelines. Observed this project first as a resident and now as a new councillor. It is far too easy to let things go on a construction site, but during the entire time the project was operating, you respected the values of Jasper National Park. You respected our tourism community. Your site represented the values that we achieve, and truly proud to see that site clean, organized, and truly when you have 40 to 46 people at any given time, it is way too easy to let a site like that get away on you. And compliments to everyone involved. It truly reflected the community we are.
Thank you very much, Councillor Melnick. Anything else? If not, I thank you both, gentlemen, for your presentations today. And again, thanks to Collier's project lead. We move forward thanks to WSP. And please do pass on our thanks to GS Construction, and perhaps a word in particular for the flag people who presented such a warm and welcoming site to so many motorists. It was such such an opportunity for positive engagement, and they used it fully. People noticed that, respected that, and really did enjoy it. So thank you all, and please pass those thanks along to all those who you know to be deserving as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Given, oh, I'm sorry, Mike, are you
I'm
waving
done.
goodbye?
No, wave goodbye, and thank you very much for everything you guys have done.
Thank you, and thank you, Chris.
See you again. Take care.
Thanks. Mr. Given, that is the only presentation on the agenda. That's all that you have for that then?
Yes, Your Worship, that was everything. Just certainly want to make sure that the folks that really deserve the credit had an opportunity to come forward and be recognized in front of council. Yeah, very appreciative of the work of the entire team. Thanks so much, council, for hearing the team and receiving that update. We have no other presentations, and we can move into the other agenda items, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much for that, Mr. Given. Just in closing out that particular item, and I think it was Councillor Demota who also mentioned the communications aspect, but it really was delightful to look forward to the Friday afternoon post of the week's work. And I think Ms. Stevens has set herself a fairly high bar for a future, but so be it. But thank you deeply through the staff for all of the work. That takes us to agenda item 5, business arising from the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes that are relevant, or others before that, if that is the case. Is there anything arising from the minutes? Councillor Demota.
I think just missing from 2022, and I don't know if it was by accident or if it just hasn't been approved yet, but January 12th to the 14th, is that the dates that we've kind of loosely set for a strat plan? Has that been set in stone, or should that be here or not be here?
Your Worship, for Councillor Demota, I think the intent of the council meeting calendar is to reflect public meetings of council. That is a strategic planning or workshop session, so I don't think it would be reflected on this calendar. It's not, certainly council has lots of other meetings and events that aren't reflected here. This is intended to be the ones that the public are likely to attend.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that clarification.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to mention one point arising from each of those sets of minutes with respect to the organizational minutes. You will recall that we set the rotation for deputy mayor and alternate deputy mayor, and there are specific duties assigned to those roles, just to keep you familiar with that, and to give advance notice that that councillor who may be deputy mayor in January and February, who is alternate deputy mayor now, I think, Councillor Demota, prepare yourself. It appears that I may miss one regular meeting in late February. So that duty will fall to you.
I think that'll be Councillor Wilson, because I'm good till December 31st.
So you are. Well, it'll be all then.
Well, Councillor Hall and then Councillor Wilson.
Right,
if Councillor Hall can.
All right, I will give confirmation later, but just a heads up that I will be calling on deputy mayor, and deputy mayor may be calling on alternate deputy mayor. So that is the order in which we do things. With respect to the minutes of the regular meeting of November 2nd, I have just a matter arising for administration to you, Mr. Given, or through you to staff. There is a note that the rebate would roll out for utilities, for garbage in particular, no later than December 1st. I just wonder, has that happened? And have we started intake yet with respect to any applications for that program?
Your Worship, administration has finished the application process. I will circulate to council so that you can circulate out to the community where it's published, and so council members can see that and maybe ensure that it's being circulated. To this point, we have received one application so far. And so not a significant uptake in the first week of availability, but we'll provide a circular to council so that you're aware of where it is, so that you can help us get the message out to those businesses that may find that it's a program that would be suited to them.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gibbon. Is there any other business arising? Councillor Demota?
Well, although not one of the more glamorous assignments, it doesn't have the community conversations attached to it. We do have a legislative committee that's set up for certain reasons. And I'm just wondering if we could get some guidance from administration maybe, and or you as well, Your Worship, in, you know, what are some low-hanging fruits that we could start tackling on that one, and you know, just to keep that committee relevant, because if it isn't, you know, I know it hasn't met in the last couple of years, and I realize that it's ad hoc, but if you know, if it isn't going to be something that's relevant to our work, then we could be putting our efforts elsewhere.
Thank you for that, Councillor Demota. Noted, and I will get back to you and to council. Anything else arising from the minutes? If not, agenda item 6 is department reports. We have nothing scheduled, nothing has arisen, Mr. Gibbon. All right, we can turn then to agenda item 7, request for decision. The first matter is the Jasper Municipal Library Board appointments. There is an attachment on the minutes, or in the minutes, with respect to that. I'm not sure, Mr. Given, whether you had intended any staff to speak to this. I will speak to it myself. So barring that, I will initially, I think at this stage, relinquish the chair to the deputy mayor, because in due course, I'm going to make a motion with respect to the request for decision. So I will turn it to Deputy Mayor Wilson to take carriage of the meeting for the time being. But Mr. Gibbon, if you wish to present, that's fine. I will wait my turn. Thank you.
Sure, Your Worship. Actually, I'll just be very brief. The municipality, under existing legislation, has the right and responsibility of appointing members to the Jasper Municipal Library Board. The HR Committee of Council did meet and has a recommendation that's come forward to Council for consideration. Council is the approving authority, or the body that has to approve these appointments, and it has to be done at a regular meeting of Council. I'll just speak to it from that process perspective. There's legislation that requires Council to make these appointments. This is the type of meeting, a regular meeting of Council, in which those appointments would be made. And the HR Committee of Council has met separately and is bringing forward a recommendation to the larger Council for formal approval. And that's all, Deputy Mayor Wilson, that I would have from an administrative perspective on this.
Okay, thank you for that. Questions from councilors? Mayor Ireland.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilson. Not a question, but just to confirm then that the HR Committee did meet on December 2nd to review 10 very high quality applications for appointments to the Jasper Municipal Library Board. The HR Committee, the Human Resources Committee, consists of Councillors Hall, Councillor Melnick, and Councillor Waxer. Due to the unavoidable absence of Councillor Waxer, I attended in my capacity as mayor, as ex officio member of all committees and of the Human Resources Committee. I attended that meeting to give us quorum. But also, as a result of the absence of Councillor Waxer, the other members of the committee decided not to proceed with the appointment of a chairperson for the committee, being the first meeting of that committee since the organizational meeting. A chair has not yet been appointed. And so accordingly, in the absence of a chairperson, I have agreed to present the report of the Human Resources Committee arising from that meeting and that review. As I indicated, all of the applications were of exceptionally high caliber, a testament, I think, to the fact that our small community continues to be a really strong attractant, a magnet in a sense, to a really incredible array of talented, educated, knowledgeable, creative, and really articulate individuals who also seem to have a real desire to serve the community. So when it met, the committee formulated some selection criteria, including experience, knowledge, education, diversity, and fit. And applying those criteria to the applications, the committee arrived at the recommendations which are presented in the report. It was a difficult task. Each of the applicants is certainly worthy on their own merits. However, such is the nature of the selection process. The committee was restricted to selecting 3 from among 10. And while doing so, on behalf of the committee, we really do wish to express our appreciation and our thanks to all of the applicants, with a great deal of confidence that each of them will find other avenues to contribute their talents to the betterment of the community. And so on behalf of the Human Resources Committee, I make the following motion: that council appoint the following individuals to the Jasper Municipal Library Board: Tiffany Toussaint, Keslin Park, and Julio Clerk, each for a term commencing January 1st, 2022 and concluding December 31st, 2024. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. That is my motion. I will say that in the event any councillors who are not on the committee wish to discuss or review the specific applications prior to you calling the question, I would recommend that we have a motion to move in camera to do that. Certainly the applicants are entitled to the protection offered by the legislation, and those discussions should be held in camera if they're necessary, and afterwards we can return to open session to conclude the calling of the question. So, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, do we have further questions about the applicants? So no need to go into camera. Councillor Demota?
No, I just want to say, being a former member of the HR committee, I know how challenging it can be, particularly in a small community when you know a lot of people. So there's a lot of thought and preparation that goes behind these. So I commend the committee for the diligence in this matter, and congratulate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, anything further before the call the question? Does everybody understand the question? So I'll call the question. All in favor? There are none opposed. Motion carries. I will now hand it back over to Mayor Ireland to continue his meeting.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilson. That takes us to agenda item 7.2, Activity Center Renovation Prime Consultant. Mr. Given.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Council, I think most of you received this report at committee last week, so I won't go into a high level of detail, but I do acknowledge that there were some committee members that weren't able to attend in person, and while I'm sure anybody that wasn't there has probably watched the YouTube video, I'll cover some of the high points of the recommendation. So administration is recommending that council award the request for proposals for the Activity Center Renovation Prime Consultant to GEC Architecture in the amount of $521,000. $521,531. The prime consultant is the essentially lead designer for the Activity Center renovation project. And to be clear, When I say activity center renovation project, that is inclusive of the activity center proper, the fitness and aquatic center, and the arena, because there are components of this project across all three of those facilities. So we're calling them collectively the activity center renovation project. Administration secured project management services early on to coordinate our participation in the project and the number of consultants that we would need to have. We secured WSP projects as project management support, and they have, over the last couple of months, really led us through advancing the project in a number of different ways. One of those significant advancements is getting ready to move into the design stage of the project, which was previously budgeted for by the past council, which included approximately $1 million in the 2021 budget for design and engineering related to the project. So this is, the recommendation is coming from previously approved funds that are available in the 2021 budget. Administration posted a RFP to Alberta Purchasing Connection on October 9th. It closed on October 21st, and 5 valid submissions were received. Administration had a selection committee consisting of myself, the Director of Operations, and the Building and Asset Manager, who reviewed all 5 of those applications on a qualitative basis, and then created a short list of 3 firms that we wanted to proceed to doing interviews with. In the report, you can see the scoring criteria and the number of points that were available by category, and you can see the final scores of the 3 top firms. Following this scoring evaluation, administration conducted a fit interview, which was an hour-long interview and question and answer session of the evaluation committee and the top 3 firms. And after that, administration is pleased to recommend that GEC Architecture is the appropriate firm and the highest evaluated firm for the activity center renovation project. The prime consultant is not just a design firm. They also lead a number of specialty sub-trades or sub-firms that are responsible for design in specific technical disciplines. In this case, the GEC architecture submission includes sub-firms related to mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, civil engineering, landscape architecture, and of course an aquatic specialist recognized in the Fitness and Aquatic Center facility. That team of consultants will review all the existing documentation on the facilities, engage with council, and support advance the design of the facility to a point where council will have an accurate design and up-to-date market costing for the project, and council will receive an opportunity to essentially have a go, no-go point in the early new year with respect to advancing the project to construction. The strategic relevance is really comes from the Culture and Recreation Services and Facilities Review that was initiated by the last council and adopted late in that council's term, just this year. In the review, it included a prioritized list of 12 infrastructure projects that were intended to guide future capital investment of the municipality. The prioritized projects focused really on reinvestment into existing facilities, and the proposed activity center renovation project really is directly related to supporting 5 out of the 12 priorities that were identified in that report. Those included reinvestment into the activity center to ensure safety and sustainability, reinvestment into the fitness and aquatic center to ensure safety and sustainability, the same into the arena, and then finally, 2 others, reinvestment into the Fitness and Aquatic Center to modernize and improve the user experience, and creating additional program room and support space within the facility. So at this stage, administration is not proposing a design of the building. Council can appreciate that there are obviously capital impacts that will result from the design. But from an administrative perspective, what we would like to highlight is that the way to find the most detailed budget that we can pre-construction and pre-tendering is to have a detailed design in place that we can undergo cost analysis for. And so the recommendation in front of you is the step that will enable the detailed design to happen. subject, and that construction will still be subject to ultimate council approval in the new year. So with that, Your Worship, administration's recommendation is that council approve the award of the RFP for the Activity Center renovation prime consultant to GEC Architecture in the amount of $521,531. And I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Given. Questions of Mr. Given or through Mr. Given to others with respect to the request for decision? Councillor Demota.
Just for a little bit of clarification and excuse, you know, any through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Given, is the ice plant construction included in this?
Your Worship, to Councillor Demota, the ice plant construction has been identified as a responsibility for the prime consultant to coordinate with. The ice plant construction project has been separately tendered and awarded previously, but in the RFP documents, we did identify that as a key project that was already underway, that the prime consultant would need to ensure that there was good plug and play connection throughout the entire construction project. So the firm, the administration, well, actually all firms that bid were aware of that project, that they were aware of its status, and they were aware of the need to coordinate their efforts on the overall activity center renovation with the pre-approved ice plant relocation that's underway and will be completed in 2022.
Okay, and again, through you, sir, to Mr. Given, for further clarification, has all the design work been done on the ice plant? And maybe the reason I'm asking is because there were some changes along the way, and you know, I don't want to be obstructive here in any way. When council was presented with the original idea of the ice plant, it was on a skid type of design. In the case that in the future, there was some type of expansion, or if we needed another rink or whatever the deal was. So that was for me a huge buy-in for, you know, my vote. And we know how difficult it is to move one of those things and reconstruct it or have one rebuilt from scratch. So I was hoping that consideration was still there if we were moving forward on it, because to me it was sold as that's the optimum and most ideal thing to do. And if that's changed, and you know, I don't want to delve into operations or administrative stuff, but I was kind of sold on that and bought into it because of that description. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Your Worship. For Councillor Demota's question, in consultation with the Director of Operations, I can respond that the project is still, rather than a skid sort of project, which sort of I think is a bit underwhelming. I'd rather think of it as sort of a package plant or a modular sort of approach, where there is essentially a ice, an ice cooling and ice system package that arrives on site and is installed. It isn't something that's slid into place by any means, but the design has been built so that a modular package system can come out, which does make for easier replacement in the future. Yes.
Thank you for that. Other questions for administration through Mr. Given? If there are no, Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
Not a question, just a statement. I guess I was apprehensive of moving forward with this, but as it's broken out, and this is just awarding the prime consultant to GC Architecture, I'd be willing to make the motion as we're going to see it come back to us with go or no go date in the near future, in the new year. So I'm comfortable with that. And again, as Councillor Demota was inquiring, this will not prove to delay the separate project being the ice plant in any way, but they're notified that they shall work together when in any means possible. So if there's no questions, I would put the motion forward that we do the council award the request for proposal for the activity center renovation prime consultant to GEC Architecture in the amount of $521,531.
Thank you for that motion, Deputy Mayor Wilson. Does anybody wish to speak to the motion? All right, I will speak briefly, and I appreciate the motion, Deputy Mayor Wilson, and do again turn, as you did, to the request for decision that lists the continuing opportunities for council to be engaged in the go, no-go scenario. And it looks like there are about 6 more opportunities for us to get engaged. So I do think it's important that we move forward with retaining the prime consultant now, so that we can be in that position sooner rather than later. So I certainly support the motion. If there is nothing else required, I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Thank you for that. Takes us to agenda item 7.3, capital budget 2022-2026. Mr. Given.
Yes, Your Worship. As Council is well aware, we're in the middle of budget season. Council received on November 22nd and 23rd the 2022 to 2026 operating capital budgets in a presentation format. And then Council at the November 30th Committee of the Whole meeting reviewed the capital budget with an opportunity to provide direction to administration on amendments. A number of amendments were raised by Council that were discussed, debated, and voted on, and administration is bringing back the budget for Council consideration. The committee made the following motions on November 30th, that the budget be amended to fund the residential water meter project by borrowing to be supported through utility rates, and that the federal gas tax funding be redirected to other appropriate tax funded capital projects. There were other amendments made to reflect the arena sound system as a funded item, and to reflect the Lions Park and Robson Park planning exercises as funded items as well. The budget that you see, the capital budget that you see in the package contains those items, highlighted mainly in blue. So you can see there are some funding source changes across a couple of different categories. And in addition to those council directed changes, I do want to acknowledge that there's another change of sharp-eyed council members, as I know all of you are, will see. There are some additional carry forward projects. As administration was doing a final review as we near year end, there were some carry forward projects that had been omitted from the item from the package that was previously presented to council. They are contained here, and they're highlighted in a light blue or an off gray sort of color that you should be able to see there. They have no impact in the 2022 net tax envelope. They're pre-existing funding sources. They were simply an administrative oversight. A couple of these projects were split across different service areas, making them hard to find. But as we get to our year-end audit and final scrubbing of capital projects, they were identified. We wanted to ensure that we're doing our due diligence to bring those to council's attention. But the real focus here is on council's direction related to the water meter program, and changing that from a source of funding that was provided by others through the federal gas tax to seeing that be as a user-funded program. The net impact of that program is to reduce the required increase to the net tax envelope from 16.4% down to 12.9% increase in 2022. As we discussed, a reduction of the net tax envelope in 1 year does, all other things being equal, have a impact on future years. And so I can inform council that that 3.5% reduction that this change makes in 2022 does lead to a 2.3% increase in 2023. So, you know, just, I think we discussed that somewhat at length during the committee meeting. But anytime that you reduce the net tax requirement, if you don't also reduce the spending in future years, that knock-on effect of having to have the net tax envelope come back up to that level remains. So the positive here is that there is a reduction in the amount of increase for the net tax envelope in 2022, and the resulting increase in 2023 is actually less than the benefit in 2022. So it is not a one-for-one. You have not caused a sort of push it down here and see it pop up exactly the same in the future. This has decreased it in 2022 with only a smaller increase in 2023, which council will have an opportunity to consider in context in the 2023 budget presentations at this time next year. So council, this is your budget. It is here with your amendments and is here for your consideration on the recommendation of committee that council approve the 2022 to 2026 capital budget as amended. Your worship, I'll pause there and happy to answer any questions for council or step away for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Given. Questions of councillors to administration through Mr. Given? Councillor Keller-Hampy.
Just clarification to you, Mayor Ireland, Mr. Given. So all the unfunded boom lift that will be in this budget, or is that down the road?
So thanks for the question, Councillor Keller-Hampy, through Mayor Ireland. All of the unfunded items are items that have been identified by administration as things that are needed or may be needed in the future that don't currently have any funding attached to them. So if an item is unfunded, that means that it will not go forward. And so any unfunded items in 2022 will not be happening unless council directed them to be funded. And so there are 3 specific examples of that in the amendments. The arena sound system on the first go was an unfunded item, as were the redevelopment plans for Robson and Lions Parks. They were unfunded items, and council at committee directed administration to fund them. And so you can see they now have funding sources attached.
Thank you, Mr. Given. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, through you to Mr. Given. I'm a bit concerned of the water meter project. It's a little gray to me still. We were going to use gas tax funding to support this large item, $800,000. Last week, we made a motion to fund this through borrowing in the utility rates. Can you shed a bit more light on how that looks? Who's paying for it? So, honestly, it looks like all of the community would pay for it equally, yet my concern is through new development, water meters are purchased by new project developers, passed on to the homeowner. So at some point, water meters are purchased. They definitely do have a lifespan. Why are they only purchased once through a property owner? And why would we be spreading out replacement of water meters equally across the board to taxpayers?
Go ahead, Mr. Given.
Your worship, for Councillor Wilson. So the intent of installing the meters all at one time is really one about efficiency. These types of projects are often handled or are almost exclusively handled by firms who specialize in this, and they will descend on a community and reinstall them all at once. So there's a benefit to having a single mobilization and demobilization, and so that's why administration is proposing a single project rather than a multi-year project to do this. Councillor Wilson, I appreciate your question. Actually was a little bit different, more focused on who pays for that project. I didn't hear you questioning the need for it necessarily, but it was really about who pays for that. And I think my observation to council would be that, as you said, these meters do have a lifespan. And while under new construction, there is a cost of that new construction to the builder, to the homeowner up front, that meter in that home will eventually need to be replaced. And so I think the direction that council has set here with the meter replacement being funded through utility rates means that new home that has has had to pay for a meter upfront will not have to pay upfront for their future meter that they're going to need to replace in 20 some years. So if we build this into those rates on an ongoing basis, it means that the beneficiary of a new home contributes that cost, that asset, but then any future replacement of that asset now becomes a part of utility rates, and they contribute to that future replacement through their rates over the next number of years. I can appreciate that there are a number of different ways that something like this could be funded. Administration's focus is ensuring that the project does get done in 2022, because there is a significant impact to municipal revenue, which we could discuss. But I think the direction of council was to say that the meters are a physical asset within the water system, and physical assets within the water system should be paid for by the users. While there are some new assets added privately, such as a new home with a new water meter that is sort of built as a part of construction, the ongoing replacement of those assets needs to be considered at some point. And the direction that council has given that this replacement program should be funded through utility rates will lead to having the money available for that ongoing replacement in the future when it's required.
Thank you for that. I think Councillor Melnick, did I see your hand previously? I thought that I had.
I was waiting for Councillor Wilson, thank you, Your Worship, to if there was a follow-up question on the water meter. My question was going to be a little bit on a different vein, but if there's other discussion regarding the water meter project, I think that would be appropriate. If I see Councillor Demota, if that's where your question is going, Your Worship, I would suggest we continue on this topic before I move to the next one.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. Councillor Demota.
I did, and it's just more to add on to Councillor Wilson's question. I think it's a valid and good one. When it comes down to the recovery of the costs on there, do the commercial ratepayers have a different ratio, and or are their meters any much more expensive or different than the homeowner?
Your Worship, for Councillor Demota, with respect to the commercial meters, yes, they are different. They really go by the size of the service, and so many, although not all, but many commercial properties will have a larger meter and thus a more expensive meter. Administration here is recommending a solid state meter that has no moving components and therefore a longer life and a longer guaranteed accuracy in their meter readings. So there may be cheaper meters that you could find, but they wouldn't give us the accuracy or the lifespan. And my understanding is that yes, because of their larger size, the commercial meters are slightly more expensive. The question of how we pay for this is a question that council will have an opportunity to discuss when we discuss the utility rate structure, the utility rate model, which is really where the question of who pays for what portion of the cost of the utility system as a whole, not down to the individual meter rates, but who pays for the cost of the utility system is a discussion that we would have in that utility rate model discussion. Administration has been working on that, plans to bring that forward to council. I think the first question is, how much does the system cost, right? And what are the costs that go into the system? The cost of the meters, as we're discussing here, capital is only a part of that. There's the cost of operations and the underlying ongoing costs. Solving that question of how much does the system cost is a question of budget. The who pays for that cost and what proportions is a question for the rate design. And they will proceed slightly differently, although they are interconnected.
Just to follow up, if I may, more so a comment than a further question. I can appreciate and subscribe to that principle because everybody's got a water meter. If you're an owner of a specific property, whether it's residential, commercial, or a mixture of both. So yeah, I think just like everybody needs garbage cans, we all need water meters, and that's how we collect the money for it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I see your hand, Councillor Wilson, and I presume it is still with respect to the water meter issue. I just wanted to interject for a moment. Mr. Given, you indicated that the allocation of the cost for water meters is yet to be determined and could be determined in the context of our discussion surrounding utility rates. Is that a fair assessment of what you said?
Your worship, yes, it is. And I would give a little bit of a caveat to that, administration is really looking at three broad categories of costs. Our underlying connection costs, that the costs that we incur no matter whether somebody turns on a tap or flushes a toilet or not. I mean, we have the cost of computer systems and staffing and other things that are not reflective of consumption. So we have those base costs or connection costs is what the previous council sort of called them. Then we would have consumption costs. So the cost of operation of the wastewater treatment plant, more chemicals and more energy required to treat higher volumes of water and effluent. So those costs are variable and change in response to demand. And then we also have capital costs, which are obviously the biggest concern for Jasper. And the capital cost bucket includes a number of items, which would include the meters as a part of that capital cost. So my caveat there is to say, unless otherwise directed by council, administration wouldn't immediately break out one capital item and start to show it as a different line item on people's, bills. That is possible, but it would be an extra level of detail work to break that out from all other capital items when we had been dealing with them sort of on three different categories. But as I said, we can reflect to council the impact of this and how we're representing it in that rate model discussion when we bring that forward over the coming weeks.
All right, thank you for that. I just wanted to say that when I suggested that the funding of the residential water meters not be through the federal gas tax funds and that those funds be allocated within the non-utility portion of the capital budget, I had not intended or envisioned that the capital budget could be held hostage by the water meter program. But I think that there is perhaps agreement on council that water meters are properly funded by users, whether there should be some equity observed for those who have already paid for water meters is an issue that warrants some further discussion. But I take it from what you're saying is that it is a discussion that is going to happen in future in any event. So council can return to that and discuss the equities of how replacing water meters can be allocated within a user pay system. So I am content with that. However, I understand that the discussion continues. So in this order, I will return to Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Demota, assuming that your question continues to be about residential water meters. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, definitely open and having the conversation on how we fund it. Yet the capital budget as it is, has it as debt. And this conversation just kind of, emerged last week. So approving the capital budget as it is and suggesting that we fund residential water meters project through borrowing, that kind of just says, well, that's how we're going to do it. And, I wouldn't be adverse to push this down the road a bit, knowing that it's not, I know there's items, there's water meters to be replaced. I wouldn't think it's crucial to replace every single one of them this year, right? So I think the conversation is more than a conversation that we're going to have today, and how do we fund it and how do we make it equal for new homes, new developments going in. I don't think we're getting to that consensus today, unfortunately. So that's the only kind of apprehension I have, is that as I look at it, we're approving something that's funded. It says debt. Is it not? Are we not able to have it as unfunded currently until we have the conversation? Is that I don't. anyway, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Demota.
Well, I believe that there was a question there. I'm not sure. Were you looking for it to get answered, Councillor Wilson, or was that just kind of a rhetorical kind of throwing it out there? Because it makes sense.
Well,
Right,
is it a
and-
question? I know that unfunded items don't have money to it, and will we be able to fund it after the conversations through utility rates, Mr. Given? Is that?
Your worship, for Councillor Wilson, certainly it's council's budget. You can choose to fund anything, at any point. There certainly becomes some practical realities about, council will have some questions about, well, so what's the tax increase? And we, as administration, can't answer that until we know how council wants to, what projects council wants to deliver. I think that's the first requirement, is knowing what projects council does or doesn't want to deliver. I think the question of funding source could be something that if there is a reluctance, council could direct the funding source be through utility rates, full stop, rather than through debt. And administration could give some advice on that. I mean, we could have theoretically, we could have a 1-year charge on everybody's utility bill that shows up, in August of a year, or whenever, and is the charge for your new meter. That would be funded through utility rates. Or we could choose to do it, through borrowing spread out over the lifespan of the asset, which is really what administration would propose. Would be that, I think that's what you would likely see from us, is a recommendation that the entire project needs to proceed at once because of its integrated nature. It's not just the meters at the end. Actually, this will be a fundamental change to how we read the meters, to our back-end billing system and software. And so there really is a process change and some operational efficiencies and benefits that come from that, but it is not something that is piecemeal. So you'll hear administration say that this does need to be a one-time project rather than an incremental project, because we can't maintain 2 billing systems and 2 meter reading systems at the same time, or certainly it's not desirable to do so. So the question really becomes, if we're going to do this project, how should we pay for that? And if council wanted to leave some flexibility to say, we're not sure that we're ready to do that through borrowing, or specifically, maybe you want to have it just reflected as a single charge on user's bill in 1 year. Maybe you want to have it spread out over the 2022 year as an incremental increase. The cost of the meter spread out through the 12 months, sorry, the 6 billings in 2022. All those things are possible. But I think the central question is, first, is the project going to go ahead or not? And then we certainly can have some additional discussion about the right way to handle that through rates if council wanted to.
Thank you for that. Councillor Demota.
Well, that wasn't my question, but I thought that there was one still sitting there. So I appreciate the clarification on that. And, if there's going to be a motion to have that change to unfunded, I definitely support it, because there is some more discussion. So, and at the risk of, holding this hostage longer with utility rates, with the meters, I wasn't really clear that this was residential only, but just being a beneficiary of having to change one in the last couple of years or so, it's less invasive, and I think it's a lot more efficient for staff to use, so it could use their time elsewhere. So down the road, it's going to have an overall positive effect. Mr. Given, you said earlier that when you push down something, it doesn't pop up the next year for the actual operations budget. But I will say, if it's too cheap, somebody's paying something. I got that from a Tragically Hip song, but I like using it. Now that's going to go, like, if we make these savings here, that's obviously going to reflect the utilities budget, or reflect something somewhere. So if we do put it towards utilities, that's going to increase the percentage that's already there, which I think is already at 13-something%. So I'm not asking for that specific number, but that will affect that. Now, if we try to pad that a little bit and stretch it out, how would the $800,000 go towards our debt load? As far as, are we still within a safe zone overall with our borrowing?
Your worship, for Councillor Demoda, I mean, you're asking a little bit for subjective opinion, and I would say yes, we are certainly within a safe zone with our borrowing as forecasted. This would be a shorter term borrowing for a relatively small amount and fully funded. And so, you know, I think the other big thing that I would remind council of is that, you know, our debt limits are directly reflective of our revenue generation. And so anytime we say, well, we want to reduce our revenue either by reducing utility rates or reducing our tax requisition, it actually reduces our debt limit. And so, you know, the proposal here overall, the increase in the net tax envelope is also an increase in municipal revenue, which is also an increase, you know, will lead to an increase in our overall debt limit. I think the municipality is still well within that, as reflected in the presentation that I made at budget, you know, the overall debt chart out to 2050.
Great. Okay. I really appreciate that. It helps, you know, even things out. So I think to me, it makes more sense. It makes good sense. I don't know, more sense to go this way, but also kudos to you, your worship, Mayor Ireland, in coming up with this concept, because to me, I was having a hard time really grappling with the increase in the budget. And I do want to say that it is, you know, technically a little more. If it comes down, it's still going to be over 12% because we're still factoring in the COVID money that was put in there already. So in essence, it's looking more, you know, maybe north of 14% still, but I think something a little bit more workable. And I thought that was a genius, you know, insight to be able to spot and consider. So definitely supporting the move. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Demoda. Councillor Melnick, I appreciate your patience. I just have one concluding question for Mr. Given, and then we can move on from, I hope, from the residential water meter upgrade. When I had proposed this transfer of the federal gas tax, my thought had been that if the replacement meters were financed by debt, that would be debt, which in turn was financed by utility rates, not by general taxation. And Mr. Given, you're nodding, you acknowledge that that would be the intent, that if there is debt, whether it's amortized over the life of the meter or not, it would be debt that would be serviced by utility rates, not by taxation.
Your worship, yes, that's 100% correct. And that's why you can see the increase in the utility rates in the net tax envelope chart that was provided. They have increased over the previous by a small amount. And the reason that amount is smaller, of course, is rather than them increasing reflective of the $800,000 in 1 year, they increase to reflect the need now to accommodate debt payments through the utility revenue over a number of years. And so, yes, that's 100% correct. The debt would be covered through the users of the system rather than through the general tax base.
Thank you for that confirmation. Councillor Melnick, again, thank you for your patience. You're up.
Well, I'm going to disappoint everyone because we're going to stay with the water meters, if I may, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Given, I heard the conversation about the commercial water meters, and I see in a few lines above that is a carry forward project, and that will be completed. And the question I'm asking relates to the billing, that this commercial water meter replacement program will coincide and parallel the residential water meter billing. Is that the intent?
Your worship, for Councillor Melnick, yes, that's exactly the intent. Would be to ensure that we have a consistent metering system throughout the entire municipality for both residential and commercial users.
Thank you. So the two projects are tied to a longer term project. And to address Councillor Wilson's, I think, very valid point, meters that are relatively new, in some instances, maybe just out of the box and installed in new development, or maybe 2, 3, 4 years old. Is there a secondary market that there is a value for those meters where the municipality may receive some credit towards this project. Because it would be a shame to take out a 2-year-old meter and basically send it someplace to its final resting place.
Councillor Melnick, thanks for the question and valid observation. That's not something I'm aware of at this point. Administration can confer on that and identify if there's reuse opportunities. I think it would depend on, if there are other municipalities that may need them. But that's something we would have to check out and get back to council on. Yeah, because nothing comes to mind at this immediate moment.
Thank you. And I wouldn't anticipate, and just to tie this up, and I'll move on if I may after, if there is a residual value that we may be able to reduce this $800,000 to a smaller amount, because we are trying to maximize both sides of efficiencies for the future and making sure we're repurposing assets in other locations.
Well, Your Worship, I think, Councillor Melnick, I think the question that administration would have to answer is really how many relatively new meters that may have some residual value are there really? I know that there has been new development within the community over the last number of years, but if we're talking about even 30 meters out of 1,200 that need to be replaced, those 30 would not add, those 30 at a residual value, if there was any, which I'm not certain of, probably would not have a material impact in the overall cost of the project, but certainly worthy of investigating, because material in the scale of this project is, they may not have that material impact at this scale, but if they do have some value that we could extract, then certainly we'd like to find an opportunity to do so.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Gibbon. And Your Worship, if I may, my question, believe it or not, is still regarding the water meter project, but it's on a totally different vein. We have suggested that the gas tax would be used for other projects in the capital budget, and that we would fund the residential water meter upgrade through debt, without having to go in and add all of the reallocations. Did we in fact use all $800,000 of the federal gas tax that at one point was allocated to this project, or will there be a portion left over for future years in that reserve? And I appreciate you might not have that answer at this point, but even a roundabout approximation, I think would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. Your Worship, for Councillor Melnick, yes, administration does have that answer. So we did apply the full 800,000. We did apply the full 800,000, and it will leave, it will leave 296,000 available in gas tax for future years. And reminding council that that is a funding source that we will receive new funds in the following year as well. Approximately $250,000 each year comes in. So it does not fully deplete that reserve, which I think is a wise administrative choice from our finance team to give council some flexibility in the 2023 budget as well, rather than sort of saying, well, we totally drained the account and we have no future flexibility from non-tax sources, but we have applied the full 800,000 in the 2022 budget.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gibbon, and Your Worship. I am complete now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Melnick. Other questions then of administration relative to the proposed 2022 to 2026 capital budget? Councillor Demota.
Well, you know what? I think this is a really good collaborative effort. The recommendations that are before us are endeavors that the administration feels that we need as priorities. I'm still a little unclear on, again, direct impact to the net tax envelope, but my understanding is our past process is that we take monies from the prior budgets and put them into reserves and take monies out of reserves for the upcoming budget. So that in and out is the in's already occurred, and we're working on the out. So because it's still it was a little unclear, I was apprehensive about moving forward, but because we've made progress, working this way, I think is a healthy step, and I'm willing to go forward with what's been recommended, and potentially some other additions that were discussed last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. If there are not other questions of administration, I would welcome a motion with respect to the capital budget, or with respect to particular items in the capital budget, if that appeals to any councillor. Mr. Given, while council contemplates that, I have a very general question then. Of the items that are now listed in the 2022 capital budget, which, if any of those, will still require further specific approvals from council before they proceed? So, in other words, having approved the budget, which is a plan, have we necessarily approved all of the projects that are in the plan, or will some return to us for further deliberation?
Thanks, Your Worship, for the question. So the answer is many. Council have many opportunities to approve many of the projects that are here. And as evidence, I will just sort of refer to our previous agenda item of the prime consultant work. Last council approved a significant amount of dollars towards engineering and design services for the project. And there were two separate occasions where council gave specific approval, one for the project manager, WSP projects, and then today for GEC architecture. So that's an observation of how that cycle works. Council approved administration advancing that work, the design and engineering work for the Activity Center renovation project, and council still is the ultimate authority for approving the award of that work, and in some cases for the purchase. Now, obviously, all of that would be conducted in accordance with established council policies in terms of purchasing and fiscal controls. So yes, there are a number of points where council will be engaged, and it will all be in accordance with established policies that have been passed by council.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wilson.
Well, I'm not adverse to making the motion, although I'm just trying to figure out wording that would alleviate my concern about the equitability of the payment of the project and meters. I'm still hung up on that. So, Councillor Demota, looks like you might have a suggestion.
I would like to move that council direct administration to amend the line item of, no, actually, you know what? I'm going to be okay with that. I was going to make a motion that we mark that the residential meters as unfunded, but the clarity that Mayor Ireland provided with Mr. Given, and that it's going into debt, but it's getting recovered through the utility rates is okay, because to me, it's almost, again, I'm using the term in and out, but it's going to be recovered in good enough time. So I'm okay with leaving it as is. So I won't make an amendment there. I'm willing to support it as amended. Sorry about that.
Sorry, your hand is up again. Go ahead, Councillor DeModa.
Yeah, no, I wanted to publicly commend Councillor Hall for bringing up the plans for the parks, because I think that's great that, you know, we were able to, it's getting funded for through MSI, and I understand that this doesn't mean the work's getting done, but it is part of the planning, and that $20,000 there, you know, would have been left unfunded. So I commend her for bringing that forward, because I think it's something that's important to the community. So good job.
Thank you. Councillor Keller-Grant.
Mayor Ireland, I'm happy to make the motion that council approve the 2022-26 capital budget as amended. And the reason that I'm okay doing this, that Mr. Given just said that we awarded GEC the project. We're going to have part of the budget come back to us again with their recommendations and how we proceed with the big project. Our deliberation on that will be in February or March on how we move forward. So as Mr. Given said, we will see this budget back again. I think for administration to go forward and to start some of these projects, the utility meter is going to be under utility, it's going to be in and out. I'm happy to make this motion as amended.
Thank you for that. Councillor Keller-Grant, that motion is then that council approve the 2022 to 2026 capital budget as amended. Debate on the motion? I see no hands. I will call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? There is one opposed. That motion is carried. Thank you for that. We have now been at it for an hour and a half, but I sense that we are close to closure. So unless there is a request for a break of convenience, I will suggest that we move on. But I could be influenced otherwise if anyone signifies. I see nothing. All right, agenda item 8 is bylaws, just a summary for information. Correspondence for information, consideration, or action. There is nothing, and nothing has arisen, Mr. Given, to your knowledge. Other new business, Councillor DeModa, you had us amend the agenda to include 10.1 federal tourism relief fund, I think is what you called it.
Close enough. It's still kind of vague for me too. So on Friday, Councillor Keller-Grant and I attended our Community Futures orientation, and part of that process, we had our ministerial representative for Prairie's Economic Development be present at our meeting. And through that, those conversations, we found out that municipalities in resort type settings, I don't want to call them resort municipalities, have been open up to being able to access some tourism relief due to what's happened through the pandemic. So I understand that some money's already come to Jasper through access from Tourism Jasper, and at that time, everyone was under the understanding that that was only available to DMOs or businesses affected by COVID. And now we have further understanding that there may be processes that the municipalities could qualify for. Ms. Robbins from Community Futures and her team have identified some ideas. And the person that's in charge, David, I don't have his last name, from Prairie's Economic Development, said that they are open and they gave us their information for them to contact. So I would like to maybe propose a motion that we direct administration to explore that funding. And I'm not sure exactly how to word that, but I'd like to hear some other input or questions from the rest of council.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. Other councillors? Councillor Keller-Harempy and then Councillor Waxer.
I think Mayor Ireland, like we had the pilot bus project last year, that may fall under this tourism grant that may be available for the municipality to explore. And I do have David's contact that I will provide to council and to administration. There's several different categories within the funding. We have some links that I'd be happy to provide administration if council thinks it's worth the time of administration to explore this.
Thank you for that. Councillor Waxer?
My only comment is just that I think from experience, it's always been worthwhile investigating potential sources of funding and working collaboratively with other stakeholders in the community to look at a holistic point of view if there's other, to see what other stakeholders believe might be important in that.
Thank you for that. I certainly don't oppose administration looking at sources of funding. We're always looking for sources of funding. I hesitate to think that we should, as council, be sort of individualizing their hunt. It seems to me that is part of the job description. They should be looking for sources of funding all the time, and it's worthwhile to bring a source of funding to their attention. But need we direct each time there is some grant program out there and have that reliant on council? It would seem to me that having brought this to the attention of administration, and I appreciate that you've done so, directing them may suggest that unless so directed, they leave other sources alone. And I couldn't imagine that being the scenario. So I would like to hear from Mr. Given whether this would be accepted as sort of a routine endeavor by administration in any event to see what sources of funding are out there, and appreciate that a councillor or two councillors in this case have brought this particular opportunity to the awareness of administration.
Yeah, Your Worship, certainly. So my direction to the team here has been that I'm supportive of finding money anywhere we can and bringing it into Jasper. And I think that council is a part of that team as well. And so if there are opportunities that council members identify that that administration wasn't aware of or that come to your attention, because I know that you all meet in a lot of different groups and receive presentations just like Councillor Demota spoke of. So we certainly appreciate it when council brings these to our attention for follow-up, and we can do so. I guess the question really is, in terms of the motion, is there an intent with the motion that there should be a staff report written up about what project should be applied for, and so appreciate the intent to raise this formally. If the understanding between administration and council is that the direction is for administration maybe to reply by email to let you know what we've decided to go after or whether we found somewhere to apply it or not, then that's fine. If the decision, the direction of council is, well, research this and come back to us with a formal report on what you would apply for, we can also do that as well. It is just a bit more cumbersome and burdensome. We can do either direction, but we just, I think, should have clarity in what it is that council is looking for in passing a formal motion on this. Is it, we want to formalize council direction to administration to do this and get back to council with what administration did? Or is it, council formally raising this for administration's awareness, with the understanding that administration would reply or provide an update to council through more of an informal sort of email update. Just, I think, really just getting an understanding of what level of closing the loop council's looking for, because certainly for me, anytime a motion is made that is direction to administration, as council will see, there's the motion action list there. So is this a motion action list item that there's an expectation that we track and then sort of keep tracking until it's done and then report back to council through a formal report to close off the loop? Or is it just sort of a, that council is raising this for our attention?
Councillor Demota.
Well, and this is the type of consensus building that, I was just trying to achieve here. And, whether we direct administration or not, the thought was that we do have some challenges, coming forward in the future, and even contemplating, what our streetscapes might look like. And, with different endeavors in those directions, whether, there's going to be, enhanced sidewalk seating, or whether we have a shuttle that we have to partially contribute to, or even the maintenance of our washrooms. We don't know what we can explore. So my idea was that, because this is directly related to tourism, and it's open to municipalities as well as businesses and DMOs, I was interested in what we would qualify for. And I know that it's a little late for operations to be considered for this year, but if there are emergent things that might land on council's lap, or some of these that might be foreseen by administration, that maybe we can relieve some, tax contribution, even if it's already committed to this year, if we can have some carryover for the next year or following, similar to what we did with most funding. And it helped us pad a little bit of our tax increases for this past year, so and for the upcoming year. So this might provide a similar opportunity. So I'm about exploring all those, and if it doesn't need any direction and the intent is understood there, and they follow up with an email, that's fine too. But I was going to propose directing administration to come back to committee, but if the rest of council and administration feels that that's too burdensome, then I won't pursue that. Any comments?
I'm looking for any indication from other councillors. I'm not opposed, but I think that administration got the message. And we will hear. I would be content with that. And if we don't, I suppose it's still open to us to make a direction at a later date.
Yeah, I realize that we have a lot on our plates, and so does administration now, but I got a little excited about the opportunity, and it's nice that when our representation on different committees can bring something like that forward to council. So thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. Thank you for bringing that to the attention of all of council and to the attention of administration. That takes us to agenda item 11, motion action list, which is an attachment just for information on a regular committee meeting, and lets us know that at our next committee of the whole, we can expect a report on the principles for utility rates bylaw and a report on the paid parking pilot project. So thank you for that, Mr. Gibbon. That takes us to agenda item 12, councillor reports. Are there any reports from councillors to council concerning appointments to boards and committees? Councillor Keller-Hempy.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Just an update. I attended Evergreen's orientation last week and met my fellow board members. We had 2 days. I had the pleasure of visiting Alpine Summit, and I think it's going to be a great year going forward working with this committee. I'm looking forward to reading the strat plan and working on all the projects that are going to be within the region.
Thank you for that, Councillor Keller-Hempe. Councillor Wilson.
Mayor Arlen and I last Wednesday attended the West Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority inaugural meeting for this term. Started off with an orientation, but then we got, well, honestly, it seems as if from my last 4 years on the board that we have some pretty good direction and momentum moving forward. We've had Bernie Kreiner guiding us through the steps and assisting us with moving towards a commission, which we are in the midst of doing. And my feeling is that this board will be, or this authority, and in the future committee will see a lot more progress and achieve, many more goals than we did in the last 4 years, in my experience. So I look forward to it.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any other reports? Councillor Demota?
Well, I don't want to put anybody on the spot for reporting back from committees from or their sessions at AUMA, but I was planning if we had some time to just drop one here or there. And I wanted to just make note of one that some of us attended on the Thursday, and that was all about strategic planning and what to put into your documents. And I think because we've got ours coming up in January, it was there was some really good takeaways on there, and including integrity, transparency, and accountability. There's a lot of redundancy in that in many documents, and the idea was why have that in your document? It should just come out of your actions. So the idea is to pick your top values that you're going to put in your time and energy into, and use the top ones that are the most useful for your community. And I've got quite a few more notes on the session, but there were some really good takeaways. And I was sitting next to Councillor Hall, and we were both looking at our current strat plan and comparing it to what they had up on the screen. And there was definitely some things that we could be doing better going forward. So I found that one to be a very helpful session. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demota. In the absence of other hands, I will report briefly, confirming, as Councillor Wilson said, that we both attended the West Yellowhead Regional Waste Management meeting on December 1st. It appears that we may be drawing in one additional partner into that. There was discussion, and an offer was to be forwarded to Greenview County with respect to the potential of receiving waste from the Grand Cache area. So that is still a work in progress, and the consensus was that as we move to a commission, we hope to be a commission that is focused almost as much on waste reduction as we are on waste management. In the orientation that Councillor Wilson referenced, there were some really good slides that have been forwarded to us, and I intend to find a way over Christmas to segregate the ones that are relevant to Jasper and provide a further report. It's really interesting to see where our community stands in terms of waste diversion and waste reduction. And it's maybe not as good as we might hope, although perhaps better than some of our neighbors are doing, but really interesting information to share with you. As I indicated, I attended the Human Resource Committee meeting on December 2nd, not as a committee or a board, but I attended the Jasper Park Chamber of Commerce Christmas party on December 3rd, and it was great to be in a room of live people again, and rather than have a Christmas party on a Zoom platform. And on November 26th, I did an interview with Community Futures West Yellowhead in respect to their Shop Local campaign. And I'm not quite sure when that is going to be aired. Councillor Keller-Hempe might be better informed about that, but they are heavily engaged in a Shop Local campaign that will be unveiled with and including some video ads in the next while, whatever that while might be. Councillor Kelleher.
I believe Mayor Ireland will be early January when it's released, the videos, which will be up on the Community Future Shop Local. Councillor Demoda and I also have some videos that were made too.
Thank you for that. And then earlier today, I did a televised interview with Global, essentially focused on Jasper's pandemic recovery. And that is something that will be aired, I think, between Christmas and New Year's, pre-recorded for release sometime in that slower period. So an opportunity at least to get Jasper's name out and our response to tourism recovering in our corner of the province and the world. That is my report. If there are not further reports, we have a list of upcoming events. Are there any other events not on the list of which councillors are aware and wish to make their colleagues aware? If not, that is all there for information then. And that gets us to agenda item 14. Who wishes to make that motion? Councillor Hall. We have a motion from Councillor Hall to adjourn today's meeting. All those in favor? There are none opposed. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you to members of the public who joined us today, and we will see you again 9:30 a.m. Tuesday next. Thank you
Thanks,
all.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.